we covered OpenAI. We covered that battle versus Anthropic. There was another. To me, this came almost left field story that I wasn't expecting, where one of OpenAI's arch nemesis, SpaceX and Mr. Musk, seem to have formed this alliance with Anthropic. Yeah. So they've signed some sort of compute deal with Anthropic. What was your reaction when you read that? Both for what's the signal for Anthropic and what's the signal for SpaceX as well. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to hear what you thought when that landed.
Yeah, I feel like I was very surprised. I was very surprised to see that happen because I'm sure I have seen Musk talk about Anthropic in a, like, kind of berate them on Twitter. And obviously, he probably does this to everybody. He does this to, but there was the time Anthropic started getting a lot of clout.
Yeah.
And I can see Musk start to, you can say he responds to certain things, and you know that he's starting to. So it didn't really seem like he was like cool with them, especially because obviously his company is a direct competitor. And Grok obviously has not taken the same trajectory that Anthropic or even OpenAI has taken. And then all of a sudden we see there is a deal. And this came right after the SpaceX and Tesla conversations and them merging and all of that. And next we see there is a deal that basically Anthropic and SpaceX came to a deal where they're going to give them compute, massive compute that they're going to use for training. And obviously, the next thought is like, why is this happening for each party? I think for Anthropic, it was kind of, it's just a no-brainer. Like, they needed it from somewhere, anywhere. They've been having massive adoption. Like we spoke the last time, they underestimated what their growth rate was going to be. It's kind of hard to estimate that kind of growth, to be honest, and to actively plan and pay for that kind of compute. So they saw an offer from SpaceX and they just had to take it. Like, there's not much they could do about it. From the SpaceX point of view, or XAI point of view, I think it's interesting because it shows two things. One, it shows that they have, overestimated, or, like you said, if we tie it back to your expectations, like the expectations they had with hitting their targets, they have missed their targets, and essentially, which is the reason why they have so much compute sitting around. Because if they bought that compute thinking they were gonna hit this target or hit that target, and we're gonna need this compute to run our models, and they've come a year down and like, okay, now we've got all of this sitting around and doing nothing. We need to make it make money for us. And I think they've decided, okay, since they've not hit the target, they might as well start renting it out. And they thought, okay, who needs this right now? Anthropic obviously needs it right now. So it's like you are making Anthropic stronger, really. You're making them stronger to mitigate a loss on your end, because the GPU sitting around really is a loss for you. Like, it's not really doing anything. So I don't really see how this is a positive for XAI in any way. It's them trying to mitigate a loss while making their direct competitor, which is already stronger than them, even stronger. Like, right after that happened, Anthropic came out and said they're going to increase everyone's, I think, rate limits for the next, I don't know. They basically give everyone like looser rate limits. Now we can accommodate more people. So it's just essentially making your op stronger.
There's so much within that. There's so much within that, man. Because firstly, I think there's no chance it's a coincidence that right in the middle of this lawsuit between OpenAI and SpaceX and Elon versus Sam,
there's that angle,
that this story has landed, that they've effectively gone with their arch nemesis competitor and provided them with a bunch of compute. I think there's no chance in any ways.
I think Elon is up.
Yeah, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the timing, I think the intention is one that you just can't ignore, and it's a part of the narrative. Just that had to be laid out. I think what's more important, what's more, consequential, I think we probably need to break down again, and just for anyone listening as well, we probably need to break down exactly what we mean by compute, right? So if you talk through the data center layer, talk through the chips, high level, because again, my understanding is they're not necessarily providing their own chips. This is a bunch of NVIDIA chips in a data center owned by SpaceX. So just give a minute or two on what does the shape of that deal actually mean? What does SpaceX give to Anthropic, and what does Anthropic get from it?
Yeah. So basically, NVIDIA produces the flagship chips, the H100s, H200s. I think 2 years ago is probably when, or a year ago, I'm not sure exactly, it's probably when Grok or SpaceX, I don't know who exactly, bought the chips from NVIDIA. And these were the flagship chips at the time. And that's what they use in training the current version of Grok. A new year comes by and NVIDIA has the next generation of chips, better than the previous ones. And they've bought this new generation, which they will do. But generally, you obviously, as you buy a new generation, you still use the old ones. You use the new ones probably maybe more focused on your next training. So the new ones can be focused on like the Grok 5, or I don't know what the next Grok is. And the old ones are probably you use it for more of your inference stuff, but it's still all the compute you have. And I remember something that actually Jensen was saying how Elon is Grok was one of the companies where they had the most efficient setup of NVIDIA chips, where they had things set up really fast. That was the most impressive setup he'd seen from any company, which was something interesting. But essentially, they've got these data centers now, and you would expect that they're utilizing it because every other company most other companies don't have enough compute for their thing. So they're utilizing it for the next training that they're going to do, which is the Grok 5. And they're also using the rest of the chips, which is the H100s, for their inference workloads and all of the things they want to do. But it seems they don't need that much capacity, which can only mean they're not getting enough inference workload, that they can still use most of the H200 chips they have for both training and even inference as well. So basically, them giving Anthropic just means they've just told them, okay, all these chips will go in these data centers. You've got access to them for, I would expect it would just be the inference stuff that Anthropic needs. They probably have their core training GPUs. They wouldn't use the H100s for training. So it's probably, okay, they need more capacity for like engineers or whoever uses code really. I just stated it was engineers, but they need more capacity for people to use the stuff, and they've basically rented out this H100s. I'm not sure how long the deal is for, but it's something they'll probably need to renew and pay for every time. And, yeah.
I'm actually going to open up a case on you,
Okay.
I'm going to VAR you right now. Okay. I'm going to open up a case.
Okay.
Because you came up on this podcast. You came up on this podcast not too long ago.
Okay.
Talking about, when Google was doing something similar and they were offering compute to Anthropic as well.
Right.
Talking about how this might be a good idea, how it might be a masterstroke, how it might make sense. Right. I'm gonna offer one mitigation that might bail you out of this one. Is that the reason I think it's different, obviously, is that Google owns these chips, these TPU chips.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, you'll probably know to an extent the ownership of the data centers as well. My understanding is probably by now they probably own a lot of that assets in terms of the data centers as well as the chips. So they probably have better integration to be able to command higher margins across the stack. Yeah. What I'm curious on, and there are some neo clouds that do this that are starting to do quite well, or a couple of them. What I'm curious on is, because they don't own the chips, so they don't own the NVIDIA training chips you mentioned there, what does the pass-through of the margin look like for them? Is it still actually profitable for them to own these data centers and effectively rent out the access to this compute to an Anthropic? My underlying assumption is that Google will be commanding a much higher margin, because obviously they're also owning all of the revenue from renting the chips as well as the access to the physical data center in space.
Yeah.
So that's the only mitigation that I'll offer you. But why? Yeah. But why else are you looking at it so differently?
So,
If not, if there is any other reason apart from that.
So I think the decision itself for SpaceX was a good decision, but it was a good decision making the best use of a bad situation, which is they're not getting output to use their products. And this was the next best thing. Okay,
but hold on.
I'll get
I'm
it.
taking you to court, man, because last time when it was Google, and I said, I think we even switched. I think we even reversed roles because I said it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not, that they've got excess capacity. It might just mean that they've seen a important business venture and opportunity here that they're going for. So why with SpaceX are you saying it means that they've got idle computers sitting there and no one wants to use their products, but with Google it was a nice new business venture? Where's that coming from?
I think for Google is more tricky because Google has a cloud business already. I mean, unless SpaceX is trying to open up a cloud business, currently they've got just one customer.
Who knows?
But Google already has a cloud business, and the cloud business has been recently the shining business because the cloud revenue has been surging immensely lately. Ad revenue is surging as well, but they've said they want to get cloud revenue to be an even higher percentage of the general revenue. So in that situation, they obviously have a bit of a conflict. Yeah. And we want everyone to come out up to our cloud, but we need our cloud as well for the products we're trying to build. So for Google, it's like understandable because either way they win, really. Like if everyone comes and adopts their cloud revenue surges even further next year, next month, or next quarter. Cloud revenue keeps surging. That's a win. If they use their own chips on their cloud, it's good from the AI perspective. They have a lot of they can compete directly. Right now, they're lagging behind it. They can compete directly with Anthropic and compete with Claude, but that's probably not the battle they want to be in directly. They want people to use their cloud, let their cloud grow, and try to add enough compute for them to train their own models. And I think they also, for Google also has like the distribution where there is not as much urgency to be first to market that Anthropic or Grok would have. Like they just announced I/O, Android 17 in I/O, I think 2 days ago. And the new Android is basically Gemini all over. As everyone who uses an Android phone is going to be using Gemini by default. If you use CarPlay, Android Auto on your car, for example. So I feel and I feel like they're in a position where there isn't the pressure to do so well in the market. For Grok, I don't think it's the same. They've got Twitter, which is cool, but outside Twitter, I think they need to run as fast as their opposition is running.
So you're effectively trying to argue that, because it's not, the interesting thing is I look at them all together, so it's SpaceX, it's XAI, it's Tesla, but you're effectively arguing that because they haven't had the breakthrough on the distribution side that Google has, that they don't have as much leeway to be giving out excess capacity because they haven't hit that critical mass or that, whatever, that breakout velocity of on their AI products to then be thinking about these side quests. Yeah. That's how.
Although to be fair, what you just said is interesting. Maybe it's because I'm looking at it more like XAI Grok. If I look at it more from the SpaceX angle, I guess it then makes more sense. Because for SpaceX, XAI is just another component. And if they can make money, obviously they've got space, they've got everything, they've got Tesla. If they can make money from compute as well, then why not?
This is the thing. I look at the two situations. I don't think that, because I saw a lot of people doing what you're doing now, innit? I saw a lot of people saying, man, these lot are busted, like they're washed. People aren't using their products, so they're having to give it out, dish it out, and I didn't look at it as that different. For me, the main difference was just on the business model that I would expect that Google will command a higher margin because of the ownership of the chips. Other than that, I saw it as a similar strategy?
So I think for SpaceX, for example, I don't think SpaceX and Tesla, I don't know, really. I guess for them, they don't really care how well Grok does, because the idea is like they're gonna make a lot from SpaceX and from robotics and all of that.
Yeah.
I guess as long as they've probably got Grok in their robots and Teslas as well, they don't necessarily care about everyone using Grok. And
yeah, look, is it the actual interface of Grok? Yeah. I again, I think where this is going to be interesting and where you might be proved right is if at no point it looks as though they're hitting the constraint of compute, then okay, it might start to look a bit fun. Because look, you've now given away some of your capacity for compute, and it still looks like people aren't using it enough to hit any limits or bottlenecks. That's going to raise some questions. But for me, from the story that I've seen today, I think they've seen an opportunity to fund some more stuff, and they've taken it. And I didn't look at it as a bearish signal. I think from Anthropic's point of view, I think they probably, as you said, they probably assessed it from efficiency and engineering standpoint and said, right, we're short on compute for sure. Who do we know to assemble this and get it done? And they probably phoned Elon, and Elon, fresh out of his court, court situation, probably said, you know what? Yeah, let's land that blow. Let's land that punch. Let's fund their biggest competitor. So, yeah, man.
I think from the angle of if everyone is racing to AGI, if there is going to be an AGI, honestly, that's a big if.
Yeah.
If there's going to be an AGI, then it probably means like Grok misses out on that.
Because they haven't got the compute.
They've not got the usage, they've not got the compute.
Let's see, man.
They probably miss out on the AGI if there is. I'm not really sure there's going to be an AGI, to be honest. I feel like it's going to be.
We got to save that for another episode. Have to save that for another episode, man. That's a whole, even the definition, we're going to have to. All right, man. I actually want to move us on. I want to move us on because all of this time we've been talking and we've talked about, again, a number of, at this point, obviously generational companies. The question that's been on my mind over the last couple of weeks is, why is it that the UK has not produced a $1 trillion company? We spent a lot of time, hours at this point talking about everything that these US giants are achieving.
Yep.
What is the blocker? What has stopped the UK from producing a NVIDIA or an Apple or even more recently an Anthropic or an OpenAI? Why have we not done it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think recently I've been seeing a lot of people saying that the UK is just now slightly starting to do better and starting to put people out there. But generally, when you're looking at the biggest, like the $1 trillion companies, you wouldn't really find them in the UK. I think there's a couple of reasons. I think one is that the UK does not really, or doesn't seem to have investors that have, I don't have to say have very deep pockets, or I don't say have very deep pockets, or they wouldn't take that kind of risk. Or maybe they wouldn't take that kind of risk, because we have UK companies that have reached the 1 billion or maybe 10 billion, and generally for a company to reach the 1 trillion, the amount of money they need to raise at that point, like imagine the money that OpenAI is raising or Anthropic is raising. You need investors with deep pockets that can fund that. And in the UK, once you get past a couple of 100 million raising, for you to get companies who would give you billions, it's just, And so at that point, companies then usually they just sell. They sell, and if they're gonna sell or they're gonna look for who's gonna give them that money, it's the US. And by the time the US gives you the money, you're just more inclined or to just go there. And you've seen companies like that. DeepMind, for example. DeepMind is probably a company that could have reached potentially could have been $1 trillion company, but they sold to Google. This company as well, I think Arm sold to, who did they sell to? I don't remember now, but that's potential in that company. But once they get to the point and raising any further is not looking realistic, they just sell to some US company and they just absorb them. Yeah. I think another potential reason for the UK is the companies don't usually command the same multiple that US tech companies command. I guess because it's very financial focused. But the multiples that financial companies command is not nearly as lucrative as the multiples that you would get in the US. So you're probably thinking do I really want to IPO here and or do I go somewhere where I can have massive multiples and so that's probably another factor that pushes people out. And even if the UK has developed,
We've got about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Oh,
All right, cool.
oh damn, I didn't realize that's crazy. And yeah, so as I was saying about the UK, those multiples you don't really get them here, and so you probably are inclined to go to the US.
Yeah, I kind of flipped the question the other way, actually.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at what are the conditions needed for one of those enormous companies. And I think across the ecosystem, as you said, you need the founders with a mindset, you need the investors with a mindset, and you need the customers with a mindset. And for me, you might not even have heard of this guy, Jonathan Ross, not the TV presenter, the guy who founded the Grok, the LPU company, the chip company. He put it quite succinctly. He said that actually the US is more risk averse than the UK. And he said the reason that they're more risk averse is because they focus on the fear of missing out and the fear of what if they miss out on an enormous opportunity. Whereas the UK thinks about what is the risk of it going wrong.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Yeah. And so that's why I think across the ecosystem, across the customers, across the founders, across the investors, they have the mindset of this could be enormous, but what if I don't get in? And that risk is
a bigger risk to
favor.
miss out than it is to just keep. That's one way to look at it, and I think that actually makes a lot of sense. Because in the US they're not going to want to miss out on the next big thing.
Exactly.
Everyone is going to want to be in.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
You know what? We're gonna have to leave it for next time, but we're gonna have to do a super chat on this expectation treadmill because when I was reading about it, there was another field where this expectation treadmill hit, and you wouldn't believe it, but it was Lionel Messi. And I actually think it's another perfect example of what we mean. But let's save it for next time, man, because I know that they're gonna enjoy that one. Cool.
All right, guys.
All right, all good, man. Look, again, thank you for watching. Thank you for following the journey. Remember to like, share, subscribe, comment. It all matters. It helps us know what we should be looking at, what we should be talking about, what you're enjoying. So thank you for engaging. Remember to like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, tell us what you think in the comments as well.
For sure.
Love you.
All right.